Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us today. Episerver is an e-commerce company. We operate in 18 different countries, and we try to make your life easier by helping you to develop robust websites in a digital marketing arena. And right now, in this pandemic, we're a little busy, so it's good news.
And so you're the global CIO and CISO are responsible with executive management across all aspects of both internal and external operations in a lot of ways with relations to IT, correct?
I am. So, in my dual role as CIO, I have responsibility for all the back office applications, obviously the corporate network, and working with the executive team. On the CISO side, I work enterprise-wide on security and compliance, and also in our client-facing products to make sure that we develop and deliver secure solutions to our clients.
Okay. And as far as NetSuite, Nuage, and global ERP rollout, we started this project about a year ago. How's it going?
It's going very well, as a matter of fact. We're on time and pretty much, except for a few customizations, we're on budget. But yeah, no, the rollout's been great. As you know, we've talked in the past, I've done just about every ERP implementation out there. I had never done a NetSuite one until this past year. This was by far the easiest one, and I'd like to think mostly because I started it from the beginning and not inherited a mess, but was able to get in on the ground floor and make sure that it worked correctly.
And to that point, what was it that led you to choose NetSuite and Nuage as well?
Well, that's a great question, Glenn, because we did some due diligence, of course, whenever you're going to, embark down this path. It's not an easy decision. You know it's going to take, somewhere between 12 and 18 months if all goes well. And so we looked at several products, starting with one of our with our current vendor. But working in 18 different countries, the biggest criteria for the requirements was the ability to meet both local taxes and different currencies worldwide. And believe it or not, many of the ERP vendors couldn't accommodate those two things. And so the list got short pretty quickly. And NetSuite was one that was able to rise to the occasion.
Fantastic. Now, is this global ERP rollout and largely being a distributed workforce, I'm sure everyone in your organization is used to working remotely, but how has NetSuite affected that with the pandemic that we're all living under right now?
Well, the NetSuite implementation and the application, so we can bill and invoice and also do order management on a worldwide basis. So having the ability to have centers of excellence in different locations around each of those functional areas has made my life a lot easier. And I'm just a service provider. The finance department is receiving all the benefits of this application.
Excellent. And they're pretty happy with it, closing the books on time, more timely than they were previously.
Yeah, I don't want to give any trade secrets away, but during the ROI phase, as you remember, our time to close was pretty high up there.
Yeah.
And we've gotten it down significantly, which was in line with the ROI that was put together. So that in itself, being able to report to the board and to to the chairman and our partner, our equity partner company, on time, on an ongoing basis, in a short period of time after the month closes has been really fantastic.
Yeah, and being privately backed, I'm sure there's a lot of reporting requirements to the board and making sure they get timely and accurate financials as well.
Yeah, accurate is timely, obviously, is one of them, but accurate is more, accurate is really where we need to be. So I don't know how else to say it.
Mhm.
When you have multiple systems, and for those that aren't aware, Episerver was four companies that came together through acquisition, but no real integration until recently. And so accurate was hard to get sometimes. There was a lot of spreadsheets going around. At some point you do close the books and you do get accurate reporting. But now we're very confident that what we're reporting upward is a lot more accurate than it was before. So that's made our life just so much easier.
Fantastic. And I'm sure as part of this, there's a lot of standardization of processes. How do you feel that's going both with the application and the consulting team as you look to standardize across 18 different countries, different requirements, and at least in some fashion as you can?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So, up front, we did a lot of work on business process engineering. And we really painstakingly, and again, based on experience of going through so many ERP implementations, know what you need up front from a requirement standpoint. So we went through every country, we went through every major system, looked at every process, every workflow, and came to terms through a series of discussions, which you were involved in a lot of them, around enterprise processes, and created enterprise process where we could. Now, a couple of them ended up with, an offshoot path, but there was a specific country reason for that,
Right.
and that's okay. But that collapsing of processes has helped us with, like I said, timely and accurate closing of the books. So, for everyone's purposes on this call, I would encourage anyone about to go into an ERP implementation to know exactly, what you're trying to do, know exactly which country, or for the Department of Finance, exactly what they do on a daily basis so that you can automate that, and challenge processes where they're different, or where they don't make sense, or where specifically someone says, well, we've always done it that way. Right? Those are the key words.
Yeah, and I will say on our side that makes things so much easier. There's not these surprises that inherently happen in a large organization that's dispersed, whether it be 20 different locations in the states or 20 countries, and that asking of why do you do it this way? Well, that's just how Jim that was here before me did it, or whatever, and that you just precipitates through the organization with no real understanding of the why there. So, and along those lines, when is a good time to consider a global ERP or a ERP in general?
Well, again, I don't think that ERP implementations are for the faint of heart, but they're not. They're big.
Yeah.
They're very large projects, and they can be complex. Uh, again, if you pick the right implementer, they should be able to help you break it down. But if a company can afford to do it and they have the resources to put to an initiative, there's no better time, than sort of, rip off the Band-Aid and get it done. Some folks have asked me, during this pandemic, is this the right time to be implementing ERP? It's not the only application that I'm implementing right now. A lot of them were in flight. Some are starting new. But where, and I think each company has to ask themselves, if you have time on your hands because of the pandemic, then this is the time to make yourselves more efficient and more productive. Why wait? Why wait until you're out of your mind busy? Just keep going, and don't look back. So we do both of those at once, and that's the way we always work.
Yeah. Yeah, and with respect to the pandemic, has COVID really affected your organization at all, other than being extremely busy helping your customers, which hopefully puts you in a great spot?
No, actually, COVID hasn't changed any of the things that we do. So, being that we work in 18 countries, we work remotely. For myself, people have asked that question. The only difference for me is, I'm on the phone all day long talking to, however many countries. The only difference now is I have a better view from my backyard versus the office. So, no, is if anything, there's sort of three camps that I've come up with companies in this pandemic. Those that were ready for anything. Episerver was one of them. Those that were sort of ready, and then those that weren't. And, unfortunately, those are the companies that are being hurt the most right now. So, for those that are ready, like we are, we're helping our customers that are in the other two camps try to get ready as quickly as possible. We had a great case just a few weeks ago. It was literally right after the height of the pandemic hit. We had I can't mention any customer names, but we had one that wasn't on a website, and we literally made them live in 3 days, from contract to live, 3 days. So we're there to yeah, it was amazing, right? So we're there to help customers with whatever they need right now to get digital and to get remote, because that's the only way to work right now.
And this is more my own curiosity. Are you seeing different countries react differently to the e-commerce and digitization and things like this? Are you seeing different areas of the business growing or not?
Well, we're operating in several vertical markets, and all of them are growing. Obviously, healthcare right now is huge. Again, a lot of government agencies that weren't digital didn't have, sites that were robust enough to handle the performance of the influx of transactions and need. So, that's a huge area right now. I could go through, many of them, but, government right now and healthcare is huge, absolutely huge.
And thinking through security, the previous conversations this morning have been very much on a lot of people with the BYOD, even if they're on your laptop, they're on their home network. How do you feel about the security of NetSuite and how it's delivered? And obviously it's cloud anywhere, any point. What avenues are you taking to make sure it's locked down and you're secured access to it?
Well, it's just like with any other website. What the vendor provides is great, but then there has to be company provisions on top of it. So, you can't just rest your laurels on what the vendor is providing you. You have to have your own security. And with that, we have, very extensive access controls within NetSuite to make sure, and especially it's a financial application, so you can't just have anyone in and out of it. We're very careful with integrations and data that, comes out. As you know, I don't really let a lot of data come in just because I'm very protective and need to be. So, yeah, no, we make sure that our data, especially in our financial systems, is very secure, and that's what allows me to sleep at night. So.
Very good. Well, so looking at the overall project and things, what do you think went very well with the project? And then on the other end, where are some areas that could be improved?
Um, I think choosing the right implementer was one of the first things that we did correctly. And again, we interviewed several. But for me, when I have an implementer, it's just like any major vendor. They have to be a partner, good or bad. Whatever happens, we go in together. We either slug it out, to fix it, or we come away with successes, but it has to be in partnership. It can't be an us them situation. So that was first and foremost, and that's worked out well, very well for all of us. Secondly, a phenomenal project manager. You have to have someone with skills in this area, because it is very complex. The project overall, depending on how you set it up, either can have multiple tracks simultaneously or asynchronously, but you have to have someone who has project management experience. And then understanding roles and responsibilities between, your implementer, your project manager, your IT team, your consultants, your vendor. Once you have that all laid out, it just, once you planning and organizing equals good execution. So plan and organize, and you'll see that you can execute correctly. And that's what happened here, which all, worked out well.
Were there any pivots midstream, things that we had to adapt to from a overall project execution? I know of one in particular, but just different things that we're going down and we're like, oh, we've got to do this now. Were there any type of those, and how did both our team and the application handle to adapt those situations?
Yeah, I think the one thing that and it wasn't a miss, but it was something that we could I don't even want to say have done better, but maybe just identified. A lot of this happened very quickly once we made the decision. And even though we had gone through extensive workflow designs, there were still things that cropped up in the middle of the implementation that led to some customizations. I still have somewhat of a little bit of a suspicion why those happened. You sort of have your holdouts at the end of the day. I don't want to go kicking and screaming to the new ERP, but in the end, the customizations that were made were small, and they were well thought out, and they were needed. So at the end of the day, you can't stop progress from happening.
And I know you were very much no customization, and customization on a lot of other platforms means version lock. How have you found the
Yep.
upgrade process with NetSuite? Because you kind of just get upgraded twice a year.
Yeah, we just did a platform upgrade on Monday, and I was going live with another major application, and then there was another major thing that was happening. So it was like, wow, like the stars have collided on one day. So the other two things had to take precedence over the platform upgrade on NetSuite, but I was holding my breath in the background. It went fine. As it has been. I think overall we've had one small issue with actually, now that I think back, it wasn't even a platform upgrade. It was just a code release that NetSuite had done, and they were aware of it. They fixed it, and it
Yeah,
happens, right? Somebody doesn't test correctly, and stuff happens.
yeah,
So, but platform upgrades have gone well, even with the customizations.
great. Um, let's see. I was going to ask. So you've gone through all this implementation, and what's next? How do you continue to evolve on the platform and take more advantage of what's available? I know you got another big rollout, which I think is the one you're just referring to, that went live last week. So then there's obviously integration opportunities, and what other areas are you looking to capitalize on the NetSuite investment and enhance your ROI?
Yeah, I think from, strictly from an ERP perspective, it's for me specifically, it's really around the efficiency of reporting. So, going into ERP, there's obviously a lot of spreadsheets and other, applications that were used. And so now that we've got one more leg in this ERP rollout that's coming due very, very quickly. I want to go back and look at all the reporting because the application does a lot of it. And let's make sure that what's there from a standard reporting is working for us. And then we can create the dashboards and the views for the other things that aren't there. But what I see is a decrease on the back end around other licenses for reporting tools. And I think that that's where we need to spend our time consolidating a lot of reporting that's done on the enterprise level.
And how has this impacted the IT organization? One of the things that I tell customers, and it's kind of hard to believe, is NetSuite doesn't require a tremendous amount of support once you get live. In most cases, there are business support when you're across the global enterprise. You do have people that need things throughout the day. But overall, what does the IT support look like compared to some of the other applications you work with in your life?
It's pretty minimal. I mean, on the infrastructure side, clearly, access control, single sign-on, we're doing things like that to help with, role-based security. Then it's, really around, managing any new initiatives on the platform that come our way, but, platform releases and upgrades. But otherwise, it's pretty easy to do right now. I mean, we haven't encountered anything in almost a year that's
Right.
massive. Development is coming from your shop. That's just about finished. And I'm not planning on having a functional developer on my team. It doesn't make any sense to do so. We'll continue to use an implementer for those few things that crop up if they do in the future.
Yeah, very good. And you're handling most of the support, like questions, how to this or that, new training internally,
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
we are. Yeah, we're doing it all internally. And so the business area, I won't necessarily call them functionals, but we have business people that are helping and they understand how to identify changes in business rules. And so they can do that on their own. They don't need IT support for that. And that's worked out very well because you don't need a highly skilled, highly paid developer to do that work for you. You just get it right in the business from a finance resource.
Yeah, and along those lines, the user adoption of NetSuite, how did that go? I can't remember the exact number of users that are touching the system on a daily basis, but it's pretty substantial. How did that go? The training, the onboarding, the move from this is the way I've always done it to this is your new life.
Yeah, it actually went very well. So, I think the key part of this entire initiative is, and I got to go back to the requirements stage to answer your question. So, we made sure that everyone who was going to touch the system, like, major, team leads and major functionals, were involved in the requirements right from the beginning of this project because we wanted them to have input. We wanted them to understand it, right? Even if they were, last in line from implementation. And so those individuals have been along the ride, the entire time. And now they understand. They're taking it back to their shops. Because we're worldwide, we can share work, and we're doing that to sort of bring them along the other countries ahead of time, and they can access the system. So it worked out very well, as a matter of fact.
Good. Um, So here's just more of a general CIO question. As cost cutting, and this may not be in your particular industry, and it's you're seeing a boom right now because you're not so much affected. But during downturns, a lot of times we see the IT infrastructure people don't focus on innovation; they focus on contraction, cost control. How do we get as skinny as possible? What is your outlook in a more general sense in the next 18 to 24 months or 12 to 24 months for the IT area? I know you do a lot with other networking groups that you're in, so I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Well, I'm laughing actually because you've obviously never
Right.
worked in an IT shop. We're always cost cutting. That's what we do for a living. So we beat up vendors and make them, make us pay less. So thank you for the laugh today. I appreciated that. No, I've been executing on a global strategy for the better part of a year. The good news is it's almost done. And there will be other things that occur within the strategy, add-ons and expansions as we acquire new businesses, go to new countries. So there's always something, but overall, innovation is one of those things. So not necessarily so much on the back end. We're processing involved, but on the client-facing product side, we've always got some new innovations going on. And believe it or not, ERP does impact that because we've got connections from, our back end of our client facing systems into ERP so that we can invoice customers correctly and make sure contracts are done the right way. So there's always innovation that's going to happen.
And along those lines, just to give the folks on the conference here, how long would it take to get up and running in a new country on NetSuite, like in general? Because I know you've done multiple rollouts now of different countries, kind of a wave
Yeah.
plan. How quickly could you think Episerver could buy a business in a country and get up and running on the NetSuite application in the back end?
Yeah, we've been doing it. We're on average, we hit about 2 months, which I have to tell you, I'm shocked. Every time it happens, I'm shocked, but I'm grateful because, in other companies that I've worked at, one country's been, months or years. And again, whole different scenarios, but, we have a rollout. We've created a base, process that flows enterprise wide. We wanted to do that very specifically because we wanted to have an effective rollout. And so, again, I caution everyone who's listening in, unless there's a reason to have a decentralized financial process, go with an enterprise one, even if it's US based, and then make it easy state by state, department by department, whatever it is you want to do. We have a centralized model that worked for us. And honestly, as you know, Glenn, we purchased 2 new companies at the end of last year. And, one is already live and the other one is, what's May
Coming up,
1st? Jesus, coming up at the end of the week.
have a platform upgrade in
So yeah, it's pretty easy.
and
Make it easy on yourself is really the answer.
and I think your one big takeaway, and I'm kind of going to let you expound, but if you do the work up front, it makes for success down the road. Would that be your one biggest takeaway for everyone on
Yeah.
the call?
Yeah, it's a tried and proven recipe. I won't tell you how many years I've worked in IT, but clearly enough. So planning plus organization equals execution. Again, I've inherited a lot of ERPs that had gone bad in the past and then had to write them and use the formula and got, the systems up and running. In this case, because I was going to have my way one way or the other, starting at the ground floor. We planned it, we organized it, we had the right resources, we knew exactly what the integrations were going to be. We knew what the partner was going to do. Yeah, we had a couple of surprises on the customizations, but that happens in every big application. So, you have to be flexible and roll with the punches. And here we are. I think we planned it for 18. I think we beat you guys down to 16, and here we are 14 months in, not even, and it's
Yeah.
going to be
And
finished.
and we got the
So
core, if I remember
that's an
correctly, it
effective
was like
rollout.
6, and then we were dovetailing in the different countries on these basically 60-day
Yeah,
sprints. And I think one of the biggest
yeah,
things is having a global software company with different subscriptions across all different types of bounds. And that was one of the areas where we did identify there were going to have to be some customizations. And do you feel that was appropriately handled by our team and how we manage that? And subscriptions are challenging in my experience when you have bundled services and subscriptions that may cross boundaries, customers, and they're just challenging in general, plus usage. So
they are, and every company has their own nuances. So the product is the product, right? They build it for everyone. But that doesn't mean that the cookie cutter fits exactly. So, at least you have the flexibility to make those changes, and you have the flexibility to make those changes. So, that first initial, several months, that was around making sure that everyone understood the requirements, doing the initial configuration for the base, and then starting the rollout with that base. So it's just those other little nuances, and a lot of it has to do with the products. At least in our case, in those countries, it's not necessarily a new financial process, but it's a product issue, that we have to make sure that the ERP application fits what's happening for that product in that specific country. And those customizations are fine. You don't want to have manual processes.
And we've talked a little bit about this, and I never use the word vendor when we go in to talk to people, because that's not what I consider ourselves. I mean, we're a partner. How's the relationship been with us and our team, and as you've gone through this process? So.
Well, considering when you guys have babies, I get pictures. I would say it's okay. No, in all seriousness, though, you're a major part of my family at this point, right? So, we talk often. It has to be a hand-in-hand process between the two of us. It has to be a partnership. If it wasn't, in all seriousness, we would have cut you loose a long time ago. I can't work with vendors or partners or consultants or even employees that don't want to work together. It's a team. It's a team effort, and it has to be, especially in something as complex and large as ERP. You can't have people, not working in concert with one another.
Yeah,
It just
and
doesn't work.
I'm always a fan of saying this is a big process. There's going to be a communication gap somewhere along the way. Somebody's not going to communicate effectively. Something's going to get missed. The biggest thing is that we're in your shoes. We're here to partner with you, and we'll sit down and figure it out. And I hope that's how the experience has been with our team, because that's certainly something. When you're doing this, it's a complex business. It's not, like you said, for the faint of heart. Sometimes I question why I chose to get into this field, but anyway, that's.
Well, and especially, we didn't have NetSuite experience. So to bring in an implementation partner and a project manager that did, to help answer those, well, what if questions, right? So without that, and having that ability to say, well, are we doing the right thing? Or is there a better way? Is there an industry best practice? What if, right? We needed that from you guys, and you
Yeah,
delivered.
and you all took advantage of Sweet Success. Have you seen, and for those on the phone, Sweet Success is kind of industry specific verticals that NetSuite focuses on, with KPIs and deliverables, workflows and processes, reporting as well. That's probably one of the biggest thing that they're able to layer in. Have you seen some of the benefit of that throughout the implementation, so you're not starting with a blank slate?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was the beauty of it, is we didn't start from a blank slate. We were able to take, industry specific screens and workflows, and then in a lot of cases we didn't even tweak them. In some cases we had to, and then, as you know, in some cases you had, or I should say NetSuite had modules that we didn't have that we needed, and we just took them and then configured them the way that we needed to. So in the end, it really worked out. And I think that, going forward, as some of these new areas that we've implemented mature, we'll get better at our own processes. The industry will push us in different directions, and we'll work with you guys to figure out how to make changes, where they're
Well,
needed.
and I know you're not in the finance part, but software subscriptions, managing all that revenue recognition, has that gone pretty seamless? I know that's more finance and Stuart, but it does matter to this group, because you got to support the business and you have to support the executives, and that's a very important compliance piece.
All I know is that my boss, the CFO, doesn't call me as often as he used to say, how come I can't get real numbers? How come these numbers don't look right? And now I don't even get those calls anymore. And hey, how's it going? How's Ray right now? I'm teasing. But in all honesty, he used to call, like when I first started at the company, it was a constant, I need your help. I need to get these numbers. I have all these systems. I have all these spreadsheets. Help me, help me, help me. And now those questions have gone away. So that, to me, that's a positive benefit. And while I like to talk to him, we have so many other
just
things
a
to
few
talk
things
about
going
right
on
now.
as we talk. Every time we talk, it's like, you don't have a whole lot going on. You're not that busy right now.
I'm not that busy.
So on the ROI of the overall project, obviously it's positive. Did we meet what the internal expectations were? from an implementation standpoint. And I know it's not quite done, but we're in the final throes of getting everything rolled out.
Yeah, I do think so, and here's why. When projects go sideways, you get the calls constantly, right? Tickets go up. We're not having calls. What we are having is conversation around new needs and reporting and looking at the numbers in a different way. So when you move out of a reporting database into an ERP application and you stop running spreadsheet after spreadsheet, the conversation changes. So it's more around the lines of, wow, we've got all this information. What can we do with it now? Versus, I don't have information. I need information. So the conversation has switched, which is exactly what we wanted to
Yeah,
see
and
happen.
one of the things I always like to see is once you get live and start using the application, you start to get the benefits, and then it's really, well, we need this and we need this, and this is the value add. So all those different aspects that kind of tee up and accelerate the business.
Yeah, if anything, with some of the other applications that have been introduced in the strategy along with ERP, it's now along, finishing those connections between the new applications so the data gets even more robust and, giving, my biggest, problem from a CISO perspective, I would say it's a bigger problem, is that people want access to these applications because they need the data. And I have to sort of, fend them off and say, no, 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 ERP is protected. If you're not in finance, you're not getting access to it. So go back to
We'll
CRM
put
and
it
leave
over
me
there.
alone.
Well, I know we only have a few minutes left. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Sue.
But it's a good problem to have. No, I was going to say it's a good problem to have because people have needs and wants. So I just need to figure
And
out
it's
how
good to
to
have good
deliver all
data.
that.
That's one of the biggest challenges I see with organizations as well.
Yeah,
Well, I wanted to give a few
absolutely.
minutes to questions. I know we're kind of at the end of our time here. I don't know who's managing the chat, but
I'll jump in, Glenn and Sue. We did have a question a little bit earlier that said you had mentioned that it's so important to have a strong project manager for these types of implementations. And he had asked if there was a specific framework for project management that either of you would recommend or that you use maybe.
You want me to
sure.
take that,
I'm
Glenn?
a failed project manager. I have my PMP and I let it lapse a long time ago. So I'm just being honest.
Okay, so you don't have that DNA. You know, what I, and again, I did my research, looked for and interviewed several people. For me, it was someone who was tried and proven in this area. ERP is a big animal, and so every single one of them is a little different. But as long as you have someone who really understands the functionality of ERP, in this case, I wanted someone who understood NetSuite just because of the nuances. And then I absolutely needed a PMP. I needed someone who understood how to speak the language because at the end of the day, they need to
Yeah,
help
and
me
for those on
execute.
the call, PMP is Project Management Professional, and it follows the Project Management Book of Knowledge. It's a certification path. It takes so many hours of like working in projects, project managing, and then you sit for this exam, and it's very detail oriented. And I did this earlier in my career and kind of moved on to more sales, solution architecting, and different things like that, which is what I do today. So.
Excellent, Glenn. It doesn't look like we have any more questions coming into the chat right now, but if you could tell individuals where they can learn more about Nuage, that might be
Yeah.
great, as well as your booth.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nuage Consulting Group, we are one of the top partners in the NetSuite ecosystem. We really focus software services and wholesale distribution. And we help complex implementations like this go well. We help with the NetSuite account management, making sure you know what the application can and can't do. and really partner with organizations on these types of rollout. And we are in the expo. I would encourage anyone who wants to talk, hop over there and talk to Louis. He's manning the virtual booth as it is right now. Love to chat and just, talk to you about what we can do from an ERP application standpoint.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Glenn. Thank you so much, Sue. Thanks for sharing today, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.